Hello friends, in the previous class we looked at vocabulary strategies. Continuing our discussion about effective writing, today we will look at modifiers and also hedging devices. To start with, let us look at modifiers. So, modifiers is a term. It is applied to a word or a phrase which actually, as the name says, it modifies the sentence meaning as a whole, or it may modify only one part of it. So, as you can see here, this group includes adverbs, adjectives or other phrases with similar functions. These modifiers are very important in academic context. They are basically used in two contexts. So, what are they? Let us look at them. First one, to provide more detail, usually with verbs and or adjectives. Let us look at examples. Reasonably good data is available for only. So, these are all sentences taken from academic writing samples. So, you can see here this is the modifier, reasonably good data is available. Decomposition eventually ceases in modern landfill. So, eventually here is a modifier. The second context, sometimes you find them at the beginning of sentences where they introduce new points or new perspectives. So, let us look at the examples. Currently, the Earth's atmosphere appears to be. So, here the word currently is modifier. Probably you have talked about something in the past, and you are now moving to the present, and this modifier indicates that shift. Look at the second example. Alternatively, the use of non-conventional renewable energies. So, here the modifier is alternatively. So, probably you have talked about conventional energy resources or some other kind of thing. Now, you want to focus on something else. So, you are introducing an option here. So, that is indicated by this modifier alternatively. So, adverbs, particularly adverbs which are linked to verbs and adjectives, you can group them into three categories. So, first one related to time. So, these adverbs they give some information about when something happened. So, look at examples. Previously published. So, here previously is the modifier. Retrospectively examined. Retrospectively here is the modifier. So, both these they are related to time. So, they tell something about the time. Second is degree. In other words, they answer the question how much. So, for example, declined considerably. So, if you say declined, so by what percentage, to what extent. So, then you use considerably. So, this is the modifier. Then contribute substantially. So, this tells about the degree of contribution. So, substantially here is the modifier. The third category is modifiers which give information about the manner in which something is done. So, they answer the question in what way. Look at the examples. Medically complicated. So, if you say something is complicated, so how? So, medically here is the modifier. Remotely located. So, remotely is the manner adverb here. So, we have seen that they can significantly change the meaning, they bring in new perspectives, these modifiers and in particular adverbs. So, therefore, we need to use them with utmost care. So, it is dangerous to overuse these, and as you can see here, the examples, some you may not want to use in academic context. For example, fortunately, remarkably. So, some words which you indicate that it was not in your hand, something like fortunately, unfortunately. So, we do not use them in say a research paper. Similarly, an adverb like remarkably, which actually exaggerates something. So, these also we do not use. And then you also need to pay attention to the position of the adverb in the sentence, where exactly you are using. So, the rule of thumb is you need to place the modifier immediately next to a phrase or a word you want to modify. If you change the position, the meaning actually may change. So, the questions you need to ask are here. So, is it close to the word it is modifying? Is it breaking up other important parts of the sentence? So, if in some cases you should not break up a phrase, then the sentence is ungrammatical. So, you need to keep in mind two things. So, one, am I placing the modifier immediately next to that part which I want to modify? Second question, so am I breaking up any phrase and thereby making the sentence ungrammatical? So, keeping these two things, you need to place the modifier in a sentence. Then there are some modifiers, they are called limiting modifiers. Examples are only, almost, hardly, just, scarcely, merely, simply, exactly, even. So, these modifiers, they are very important. The meaning of the sentence can change dramatically depending on where you put these in a sentence. So, we will look at an example to illustrate this point. Okay. So, here the sentence is John met Mary in the train yesterday. Now, the adverb, the modifier I have chosen is only. So, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sentences here. The only difference among these is where this modifier only is placed. So, let us look at these sentences in detail. Sentence 1, only John met Mary in the train yesterday. John only met Mary in the train yesterday. John met only Mary in the train yesterday. John met Mary only in the train yesterday. John met Mary in the only train yesterday. John met Mary in the train only yesterday. John met Mary in the train yesterday only. So, if you look at this, now you might have already realized that there is a dramatic difference in the interpretation. So, first one, only John met Mary in the train yesterday. So, here only modifies John. So, here you are trying to say, so nobody else met Mary, only John met Mary in the train yesterday. When you say like this, John only met Mary in the train yesterday, you are here confirming, yes, John did meet Mary in the train yesterday. John met only Mary in the train yesterday. So, here it is modifying Mary. So, John did not meet somebody else. So, he met only one person, and that was Mary. John met Mary only in the train yesterday. So, here this is again you are saying John met only Mary. Then look at this sentence, John met Mary in the only train yesterday. Here only is modifying train. So, there was only one train. So, that is what you are referring to here. John met Mary in the train only yesterday. So, this is modifying here yesterday, it is talking. So, it has not been quite long time. So, they met only yesterday. John met Mary in the train yesterday only. So, it means did not wait for today, something that kind of meaning, he was in a hurry. So, he met her yesterday only. So, as you can see here, by just changing the location of the modifier only, you can see the shift in the interpretation. So, the sentenceal meaning varies. So, you need to be very careful where you place modifiers in the sentence. Now, let us do a small exercise. So, insert a suitable adverb in the blanks here. So, let us look at these sentences. Blank, the mobile phones were bulky and highly expensive. So, what is the clue here? Were, past tense. So, you need something which refers to time in the past. So, one option here is you can use initially. So, initially the mobile phones were bulky and highly expensive. Look at the second one, the quickest way is to take the train. Blank, you can take the motorway if you want to enjoy the scenario around. So, look at the context, there is a clue there. So, you are talking about train and motorway. So, there are two options to get to some place. So, you can use the adverb alternatively. So, the quickest way is to take the train, alternatively you can take the motorway if you want to enjoy the scenario around. Look at number 3, the concern about financing the health service has been growing. So, here the clue is this present perfect continuous. So, this means something has started in the recent past and it is continuing and it is likely to continue in the near future as well. So, it focuses on the duration, the length of the process. So, you can use an adverb like gradually or something like steadily. Which focuses on the length of this process, the duration of this particular event. Now, let us look at this table. This gives some adverbs which you can use to describe changes in the rate of something. So, if it is small, you can say gradually, slightly, marginally, slowly. If it is large, change. So, you can say enormously, sharply, dramatically, rapidly. If it is somewhere in between, you can say substantially, significantly, steadily, considerably. Now, keep this list in mind. We will now try an exercise. So, in these sentences, you need to read them very carefully and then supply an adverb. So, let us look at these one by one. Last year, inflation increased blank from 2 to 2.1%. So, this is the change. So, 2 to 2.1%. So, you may think it is not very significant. So, this is a very small change. So, go back to our list. So, we can use something from this. So, here you can pick either this or this. So, we can say marginally. Last year inflation increased marginally from 2 to 2.1%. Look at the second one. The crude oil prices have fallen blank in the last 20 months by about 35%. So, this you think is huge, this is very significant. So, you can go back to the table. So, you can look at this column here. So, you can choose something from here. So, say you can choose this. So, say the crude oil prices have fallen sharply in the last 20 months by about 35%. Look at number 3, sales rose blank while he was chairman, averaging 14% per year. So, here again 14% per year, you think this is very huge, very significant. So, you can use something like dramatically here. So, you can say sales rose dramatically while he was chairman, averaging 14% per year. So, now you can see that when you supply a modifier, it refines your sentence. So, these make your writings more attractive and you will be able to convey your thoughts in a better way. But of course, you have to be very careful with the use of modifiers. There are some issues, some problems and some common mistakes learners do regarding the use of modifiers. So, we will look at them now. The first one is misplaced modifiers. So, as the name suggests, you have used a modifier in the wrong place. So, you wanted to modify something, but you have placed it somewhere else. Now, it is modifying something else, and as a result the meaning it is conveying is very different or sometimes absurd. Okay. Look at the example here. It was not a good idea to serve food to the guests standing around the room on flimsy paper plates. So, look at this. So, this is a modifier here, but you have placed it next to this. So, now what is the meaning you get? Guests were standing around the room on flimsy paper plates, which is actually very funny, but you actually wanted to say food was served on flimsy paper plates. So, the modifier here has been misplaced. So, now the solution is take it and place it immediately next to what you wanted to modify. So, now you say it was not a good idea to serve food on flimsy paper plates to the guests standing around the room. So, that is how you correct mistakes with misplaced modifiers. The second issue is what we call dangling modifiers. So, this appears in a sentence that contains no word or phrase to which the modifier can be reasonably linked. So, you have used it, but what it is modifying, that is the modified part is not explicit. Look at the example. Heading up to the mountains for the weekend, the road was covered in a thick layer of ice. So, this is the main part. this is the modifier heading up to the mountains for the weekend. But who is heading up the mountains? Now, it looks like as if the road was headed up the mountains, but this is not what you meant, right. You meant somebody there, say I or we. So, you need a subject there. So, you can say heading up to the mountains for the weekend, we saw that the road was covered in a thick layer of ice. So, this what we call is dangling modifiers. You have the modifier here, but the modified part is missing. So, you add something like then the sentence actually now is more appropriate. The next issue is what we call disruptive modifiers. So, they separate closely connected elements in a sentence, making the sentence difficult to read and understand. So, we observed earlier that you should not break up a sentence by placing a modifier in between, and sometimes it makes the sentence ungrammatical as well. Look at the example. The researcher, because he had never worked with chimpanzees before and was therefore unaware of their intelligence, was surprised when they purposely undermined the experiment he was trying to conduct. So, this part is modifier. So, a small one adverb probably may look okay, but this is a very longish clause, and this is modifying the researcher, but this interrupts the flow here. So, you want to say the researcher was surprised when the chimpanzees purposefully undermined the experiment he was trying to conduct. So, this is the main idea, but this modifier here interrupts the flow of reading. So, maybe one way is you take it this entire part and place it in the very beginning, and then the flow continues. The next issue is squinting modifiers. So, squinting modifiers means you have a modifier there, but it leads to an ambiguous interpretation because it can modify more than one element in the sentence. So, it can refer to either the word before it or the one which comes after it. So, thereby leading to at least two very different meanings. Look at this example. People who enjoy listening to MJ often claim that he was the finest American performer of the 20th century. Here, the modifier is often, but the problem here is this modifies two things. Listening to MJ, this is one part, and claiming, second part. So, now the question is, are you trying to say that people listen to MJ often or people claim often? So, there are two possibilities here. So, that is what I have listed here. The people in question listen to the music often, or they often claim something about MJ. So, here this is a case of squinting modifiers. So, in order to remove ambiguity, you need to change the position of this. So, you can simply move it here. People who often enjoy listening to MJ claim that he was the finest American performer, or you simply say that people who enjoy listening to MJ claim often that he was the finest American performer of the 20th century. So, by changing its position, you can disambiguate this sentence. The next aspect is what we call hedging devices. So, what are they? So, what is its importance in academic writing? So, let us look at it. So, hedging is an important feature of academic writing. So, to put it in simple words, so hedging means being bit cautious about what you are saying. So, modifying the claims you are making, the general statements you are making. Why? You need to distinguish between facts and claims. So, facts are accepted by everyone, fine, say on the basis of that you are making a claim. So, how sure you are about this? So, how strong is your claim? So, hedging actually can help you in that. So, why do we need to use hedging devices and in academic context, and how we go about it? So, let us look at it in detail. So, to begin with, hedging can be defined as the use of linguistic devices to show hesitation or uncertainty and to display politeness and indirectness. So, you use many linguistic devices. So, these linguistic devices could be a single word or a phrase, it could be a verb, an adverb, a noun, but the purpose here is, see, you want to be polite, and you also do not want to make a very bold claim, you want to be cautious. So, now you might think, okay, in academic context I have done research. So, following all the protocols, all the conventions in my field of study. So, it has been a quite rigorous experiment. So, I have got now the results. So, then why do I need to be cautious about the claims I make? Why do I need to be polite about what I am saying? So, why can't I say something with full force? So, this is a common question many people ask themselves, but you need to note here that no matter how rigorously you've followed all the conventions and everything, there is always a scope for improvement. Unless you have something which is universally accepted. And remember, many of the things which we now take for granted earlier started as claims, and then several studies over a number of years have established those claims as facts. Something simple as the earth revolving around the sun, it again took a lot of studies, many scientists conducted many experiments, and then now we accept it as a fact. So, the study you have conducted and the claim you are making on the basis of it, remember, is just only the beginning. So, there are many possibilities. One, you may have made a mistake unknowingly and somebody else points it out. So, if you have a strong claim, immediately that just gets demolished. Second, you never know that later on something might come up, an evidence which contradicts your findings. So, you cannot be 100% sure about the validity of your experiment and results. So, therefore, whatever you say, you tone it down. You say yes, I have conducted my research study in a thorough manner, but still I am making this claim say with 90% certainty. So, there is always scope for error, some issues there. So, that is how we need that that is why we need these hedging devices. Let us now look at some examples. So, here are some sentences taken from articles. Let us look at these. Primary products usually have low supply and demand elasticities. So, here this is the hedging device. Multiple factors may lead to a psychiatric consultation. May is the hedging device. Some parameters might depend on the degree of water content in the sand. Might is the hedging device. Women tend to value privacy more than men. Tend to is the hedging device. Other studies suggest that some permanent shift will occur. Suggest and will, both these are hedging devices. Now, let us look at these contexts and see what difference they have brought in. So, looking at the first sentence, if you simply say primary products have low supply and demand elasticities, this is a strong claim. So, it is applicable in all circumstances, but you do not want to make such a broad claim, very general claim, because it is easy for others to point out some data, some evidence which contradicts this. So, it is better you use a hedging device here usually. So, you say maybe okay 90 to 95% this is the thing, but see I am acknowledging that 5% there may be error, maybe some other kind of situation. Look at the second one. Multiple factors may lead to a psychiatric consultation. So, if you do not use hedging device and if you simply say multiple factors lead to a psychiatric consultation. So, this is again you are saying with 100% certainty, but it may not be the case, particularly in humanities and social sciences. We know it is not easy to make such highly generalizable claims. So, the writer here has used the modal verb may. Similarly, the second one, see some parameters might depend, might here is the modal verb and it is the hedging device. Instead of saying some parameters depend on the degree of water content in the sand, you say might depend. So, that tones down. Look at next one. Women tend to value privacy more than men. So, you have used verb here and see what the difference it has brought in. So, if you say women value privacy more than men, this is quite a strong claim, but if you say tend to value privacy, so you are kind of softening. Look at the last one. Other studies suggest that some permanent shift will occur. So, here the verb suggest is a hedging device. So, how you can compare this verb with other verbs like for example, prove or establish. So, these indicate higher level of certainty. Suggest is actually you are being a bit cautious. Some permanent shift will occur. This will is again modal verb. This is a hedging device. So, some permanent shift occurs. So, if you use simple present tense, you are being very sure. So, probably you mean to say that that is a general tendency, but you do not want to do so. So, you will use the modal verb will here. So, as I said, it is necessary to make decisions about the stance on a particular subject or the strength of the claims you are making. So, accordingly you will use a hedging device and tone it down, but with facts we do not say. For example, we do not say the earth seems to be revolving around the sun. So, we do not say that, we simply say the earth revolves around the sun. So, because that is fact, or we say India got independence on August 15, 1947. So, this is again a fact. So, these are well established and universally accepted, but if you are making a claim based on some data, then you need to decide how strong your claim is going to be. So, as I mentioned earlier, most of all the claims you make in academic writing are debatable, and therefore, academic writers, they express their ideas with medium level of certainty. So, they do not claim that whatever they are saying is absolutely true. So, you will need a lot of evidence, lot of studies to say that something is absolutely true. Say for example, how dinosaurs vanished. So, there is a theory that an asteroid hit the earth and that led to series of catastrophic changes in the environment, in the surroundings, and all those things eventually led to the complete extinction of dinosaurs. But can somebody say that this is absolutely true? So, there is evidence about this theory, fine, but is it established beyond doubt? No. So, you express something only with medium level certainty until you have a lot of evidence, a lot of people saying the same thing, and then it gets accepted. So, in academic context, people use hedging devices for several different purposes. So, they are listed here. So, one, to minimize the possibility of your peer opposing and demolishing your arguments in a very simple manner. It means if you make something some claim with very high level of certainty, then it becomes easier for people to question it. It might be your teacher, your colleague, maybe student, somebody else working in the same field. So, they will be able to criticize you, they will be able to point out loopholes in your argument if you make very strong claims. Second, to enable you as a writer to be more precise when reporting results. See, you can say that something is not proven 100%, but that is what it is indicated and subsequently it is assumed. So, you do not say that this is 100%. So, this is what it seems to indicate and this is what we can assume. So, that is the kind of level you will be making claims about your results. Next, to enable you to execute a politeness strategy in which you are able to acknowledge that perhaps there may be flaws in your claims. So, this is very important. So, this I have already mentioned. You may have controlled all the variables, and you may have followed all the conventions, but there is always some scope for errors. So, you acknowledge that yes, at least maybe 5% there is chance factor, 5% there is possibility of some error. So, whatever I am saying is is true in 95% of cases. So, that is what you want to say. You acknowledge that there may be flaws. So, by doing so you are being polite in academic context. Next, to conform to a now accepted practice writing style. So, this has now become almost a norm. So, journals and many other academic platforms, they expect you to use these hedging devices. They expect you to be polite, be cautious about what you are saying. So, if you make very strong claims, probably your paper may not get accepted. It will undergo more rigorous review, and so even if there is say 1% issue, then your paper will be rejected if you have very strong claims. Instead, if you are cautious about what you are saying, so then people accept, okay, so this person has done rigorous research, but of course, there is always a scope for improvement, there is always a scope for error. So, that can be overlooked, but if it is a strong claim, then things get complicated. So, this is now an accepted practice. So, what are the different ways to hedge? So, we have seen examples that you can use modal verbs, you can use verbs. Let us look at some more possibilities. So, one is you use modal verbs such as may, might, can, and so on. You use nouns which are called modal nouns, for example, probability, assumption. So, there is probability that something. So, these function similar to these modal verbs. Then you have lexical verbs which denote a sense of caution, for example, assume, indicate, suggest. So, these kind of indicate some kind of caution. Using expressions which show a sense of caution or vagueness. For example, it can be argued that. So, look at this phrase. So, you do not simply say this is true, you can say that it can be argued that. It is likely to be the case that. So, likely to be, so these are all very clearly are hedging devices, and they show a sense of caution or vagueness. So, for example, if you say that attendance should be compulsory, so this is a very strong statement, but if you say it can be argued that attendance be made compulsory, then you are being cautious. Okay. Now, let us do an exercise. Here are some sentences, some extracts from academic writing. Let us look at these and then see if a hedging device has been used or not. Look at the first one. Viewing a movie in which alcohol is portrayed appears to lead to higher total alcohol consumption of young people while watching the movie. So, here you are making something about watching alcohol consumption in a movie and how it affects young people's consumption. So, is there a hedging device here? So, yes. So, the author here has used a lexical verb. The verb appears here kind of indicates that the author is cautious. So, you compare it with its version without this verb. So, if you remove this, now see, viewing a movie in which alcohol is portrayed leads to higher total alcohol consumption of young people while watching the movie. So, this is a very strong statement. So, you do not want to make such a strong claim. So, you bring in a lexical verb appears, and so you have hedged it. Look at the second example. Furthermore, this proves that humans are wired to imitate. So, is there a hedging device here? So, author has probably given some example, there is some evidence there, and then on the basis of that the claim is that humans are wired to imitate. The word which you need to focus on is this, proves. So, what does prove mean? So, prove is very high level of certainty. So, for example, we use it in legal cases. So, this proves that X is the culprit. So, it is a very high level of certainty. It is better to replace this word. So, what can we use in its place? You can say, furthermore, this you can use indicates or suggests or you can say shows, and you can also insert something here. Say for example, you can say humans are probably wired to imitate. So, now you can see that you are toning down, you are being little more cautious about what you are saying. Let us look at one more example. It is unquestionable that our survey proved that the portrayal of alcohol and drinking characters in movies directly leads to more alcohol consumption in young adult male viewers when alcohol is available within the situation. So, this is again talking about two things: portrayal of alcohol and drinking characters in movies and alcohol consumption in young adult male when alcohol is within the reach. So, has hedging been done here? It seems it has not been. Look at this, it is unquestionable. This is a very strong word, and you have also used the word proved. So, usually we do not use such words in academic writing. So, you simply say that. So, all this part you can delete. You can say our survey. So, we have discussed. So, prove is a strong word, replace it. So, our survey showed that portrayal of alcohol and drinking characters in movies. So, directly leads, you can replace this with, so may directly lead. So, if you say directly leads, it means 100% this is going to happen, but if you say may directly lead, so there is a possibility. So, remember this is about human behavior, and you cannot be so sure about it. So, being cautious actually helps. So, you use a hedging device to be more cautious. Now, let us do another exercise. Here are some sentences and these do not have any hedging devices. So, let us read these and insert a hedging device to tone down the claims. The data proves that students learn better when taught in mother tongue. So, problem here is prove. So, change it. So, you can say the data suggests that students may learn better when taught in mother tongue, or you can say students tend to learn better. So, you are being cautious here. This is about what you are making claim on the basis of data. There is no previous study in this area at all. Say you have done a review of previous research, you are trying to justify your study. So, it may be true that there has not been any study, but it is possible that there was some study in some part of the world, but you have not found it. So, you cannot be so sure that there has not been anything in this area of study. So, you have to be cautious. So, instead of saying there is no previous study in this area at all, you can say there seems to be no previous study in this area and this is a strong one, delete it, or you be little more specific. So, you break it into further area and say in this part has not been studied. So, there are studies which have considered this part of the problem, but this part has not been looked at, or this part has been looked at from one particular perspective, but not from this perspective. So, you be little more specific and you avoid making such very strong claims. Look at the third one. The survey results must be used to improve user interface in smartphones. So, you have conducted a survey and on the basis of that you are arguing about improving user interface in smartphones. So, what is the issue here? Issue is with your modal verb must. So, this is very high level of certainty. It is a kind of you are making it compulsory, but that does not work. So, we know there may be issues with this, and even if you say hypothetically it was foolproof, you cannot make it mandatory for others. So, there is a problem here. So, change the modal verb. You can say the survey results may be used or can be used to improve user interface in smartphones. So, now you are being little more cautious, and so then it is acceptable and it is more appropriate. So, that is how you use hedging devices in academic context. So, summing up, today we looked at two important aspects which make your writing effective. One, the use of modifiers, and second, use of hedging devices. So, modifiers, we saw that they traditionally include adverbs and adjectives, but it would also be a phrase or a clause which is modifying another part of that sentence. So, if you use these modifiers very carefully, your writing becomes more effective. You will be able to convey your ideas in a better way. We saw that there are some common mistakes many people make regarding the use of modifiers, like misplacing them. So, you need to place it next to the part which you want to modify, and then sometimes you have a disrupting modifier. You have a long piece of text, a phrase or a clause. So, you have placed in between the sentence, and as a result it disrupts the natural flow. So, avoid such usage. And then we looked at dangling modifiers, means you have used a modifier, but what it is modifying is not explicit. So, you have to make it explicit in your sentence. Then squinting modifiers. So, you have some modifiers, but they are placed in such a way that they can modify more than one element in the sentence, thereby leading to ambiguity. So, place it appropriately and avoid ambiguity. We also saw that there is a group of modifiers which are called limiting modifiers, like only, scarcely. So, these you have to use with great caution. So, the meaning might dramatically change depending on where you place it in the sentence. The next part was about hedging devices. So, we saw that in academic context, people need to be cautious about the claims they are making. You cannot make a claim with 100% surety, 100% certainty. So, we use various linguistic devices such as modal verbs, modal nouns, then some phrases to tone down what we are saying. So, these are very crucial. One, if you make a strong claim, remember it is very easy to point out problems with it and demolish your argument, and then you want to be sure about your results. So, no research is foolproof. So, you want to be cautious. Then it is also now an accepted practice to use hedging devices and be polite and indirect. So, you use them in your writing, and your writing style improves. Your readers will appreciate your style. Thank you.